Hello, everyone. Welcome in to Stacking the Box. I am Matt Verderame. We are doing this live on a Thursday afternoon. There's big news in the NFL. Deshaun Watson has been suspended. This time it looks official from the NFL. 11 games and a $5 million fine. A lot more than 6 games and no fine, which was out there from Sue Robinson, who's a disciplinary officer appointed jointly by the NFL and the NFLPA. It was not thought that it was going to stick. It does not stick. And so here we are. 11 games is what is the final decision come to by Peter Harvey, who's the former New Jersey Attorney General of the NFL. So what does it all mean? Well, it means the Browns are in a lot more trouble this season than they were to be. Their first 6 games were very easy. They had a schedule that even with Jacoby Brissett, they probably could have found a way to win 3 games, 4 games, not harder. Now you have 11 games, and those extra 5 include the Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Bucks. They're probably losers, okay? Especially if they stick with their current roster. With due respect to Jacoby Brissett, I do not think they're going to be able to find a way to get over the top of a lot of those teams. They're playing big-time contending teams in the AFC. And then, of course, he comes back week 13. He comes back against the Houston Texans. In Houston, you can't make it up. So what does it all mean? What does it mean for Watson? What does it mean for the Browns? Well, for starters, again, for the Browns, it means that now he is suspended for essentially 2/3 of the year. Okay? In a division and in a conference that is hyper-competitive, it is going to be very, very hard to survive that situation. So the end, much more difficult on the Browns in 2022. We'll talk about the options that gives them. For Watson, he's only losing money out of his base salary, which has been widely reported is $1 million this year. So even though he's making $46 million, he's not getting fined prorated out of that $46 million. He's being fined prorated out of that $1 million. And so he's only losing a little more than $500,000, which for most of us is an unbelievable amount of money. For him, a drop in the bucket. However, the league is fining him an additional $5 million. So a financial penalty to go along with the fine itself that was going to be accrued throughout missing games. But in the end, I think if you're Watson, you're probably pretty happy with the verdict. You're not suspended for a full season. You're going to accrue a season because you need to play 6 games to do it. You need to be active 6 of 8. So the contract will toll, whereas it will go as if everything was normal. Whereas if he was a year, he would have lost that season. He would not have been moving toward another new deal whenever that were to come up. Also, if you're Watson, you missed all of last year and he got paid. Okay, he sat on the sideline. He wanted to be traded out of Houston. He was not suspended. He was active. Texans just simply chose not to play him. He now is going to be sitting for the better part of 2 years. You wonder what he's going to look like when he comes back. I mean, this is a lot of time missed. This isn't a couple of games, but if you're watching, you're still probably feeling like, well, it's not 2 full seasons, whereas I think a lot of people thought that was what was going to happen. He was going to be out for 2 full years last year, this year. That's not the case. So for the Browns, okay, to switch to the team side of this, what does it look like? Well, I mentioned their schedule's easy over the first 6 weeks, and it is, okay? They play Carolina to start Mayfield's potential revenge game. Then the Jets at home, the Steelers at home. Those are winnable games. The Steelers games on Thursday night. At Atlanta, very winnable. Home against the Chargers, tougher but at home. New England at home, winnable again. Now you get into the games where it's been tacked on, so to speak, okay? At Baltimore, a Monday night on Halloween, a home against Cincinnati. Then they had the bye at Miami, at Buffalo, home to Tampa. That is a brutal 5-game stretch. And that was a stretch they were going to have Watson for initially. Now they don't. That is tough. That is going to hit the Browns hard on the field. Once he comes back, Their schedule, I would say, is so-so. At Houston, which is just ridiculous that he's coming back in that game. That is going to be a circus. Like at Cincinnati, very tough game. Home against Baltimore, tough game. Home against the Saints on Christmas Eve, tough game. At Washington, not easy. At Pittsburgh to end the year, we'll see who's playing for what. If you're a Browns fan and you were hoping that 6 games was going to stick, you had to know the second the NFL appealed that it would not. I think if you're a Browns fan and you're just talking about it from a purely football perspective, you probably have mixed feelings. He's not missing the whole year, but with the games he's missing, if they don't add significant talent at the quarterback position, he might as well miss the whole year because they're not making the playoffs. Not in that conference where Buffalo's making it barring disaster. Same with Kansas City. The Chargers and Broncos are really good. Somebody's winning the South, probably the Colts in my estimation. You have the Bengals and Ravens who are excellent. Okay, Miami's significantly improved. It's going to be very, very hard for Cleveland to overcome all that. So, look, a question in the comments, is there expected to be any punishment for the Texans? We're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, Jenny Ventris, who does a hell of a job over at the New York Times, she wrote a sweeping piece during the offseason about how Watson had visited over 60 massage therapists. The Texans were aware of those visits, and they even provided him reportedly with a non-disclosure agreement. Not a good look, to say the least, for the Houston Texans. And so you do wonder if they will face discipline at some point in time. We don't know yet. So far, no word on that. We'll wait and see if the NFL decides to punish Watson's former team, along with his current team, of course, already paying Watson and not getting anything for it for the first 11 games of what is a 5-year, $230 fully guaranteed contract. Okay. So for the Browns moving forward, right, you look at it and say, all right, where do they go from here? Well, the big question now is Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Are the Browns going to trade for Jimmy G? He remains on the 49ers. He has a cap hit of about $27 million. However, if he's dealt, okay, the cap hit won't be that high for the Browns. You also wonder, will the Browns be willing to give a little bit of a better pick for the Niners to eat some of the salary? Now, they don't have to. Okay, the Browns make it work from a financial standpoint, but don't forget they're paying a lot of money right now to quarterbacks. Watson is still on the books for $46 million. Okay, over year after year, but if you look at the actual cap breakdown, okay, the Browns have $49 million in cap space right now, more than any other team. Watson is only on the books cap number wise this year for 9.68. The Browns could easily afford Garoppolo's whole salary. So my thought would be they will just acquire Garoppolo if they do and pay the freight. Why give a better draft pick? Now, they could if they want to roll over some of the money. Okay, there are different things general managers do. The point being, they don't have to. Okay, they're not leveraged by the Niners, whereas if they had $15 million, the Niners would say, have us take some of this money on. You're going to pay through the nose in draft capital. Cleveland doesn't have to do that, okay? Right now, the Browns are in the best financial shape for this season of any team in football. They easily have the most cap room to play with. So the question becomes, look, you're paying Baker Mayfield, has a higher cap hit for them than Deshaun Watson does, third highest in the team. You're paying Jacoby Brissett. You're paying Deshaun Watson. Do you want to pay another quarterback contract? Well, if you want to compete this year, you probably do. I would venture to say in those 11, they don't upgrade a quarterback. I think they're going to be very, very hard pressed to win more than 5 games. I don't even know that they'd win that. It'd be like 4-7. If they have Garoppolo, that might get them to 6-5. And with Watson coming back, maybe you get to 10 wins. Maybe you find a way to do that. So if you're Cleveland, is it worth getting Garoppolo? I think it's probably worth looking into. And if you're the Niners, look, you'll take a song for Jimmy G at this point. You have no other leverage. Okay, Seattle is not going to trade for him. Nobody else in the league is going to trade for him. So what are you going to end up doing? You're going to end up cutting him to save the financial side of things. So you can roll over the money going forward, which is fine. But you could do both. You can get a pick and roll the money over, even if it's a 6th-round pick. So what? Who cares? It's better than nothing, right? So I think if you're Cleveland, you're probably looking at this and saying, if we would like to make the playoffs this year, Jimmy Garoppolo is our best option. And if you are the Niners, you're saying, well, why not? Right? Why not make the trade? So it all makes sense. The question just becomes, does Cleveland want to pay out all that money? Would they rather just roll the money over? And do they feel more confident than I do in Jacoby Brissett? And do they feel, hey, we can win 5 games? We can win 6 games. I think they will be very hard pressed to be over 500 after 11 weeks if they're trotting Jacoby Brissett out there. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they do feel that way. By the way, thank you for joining me on this breaking news live stream. Deshaun Watson suspended by the NFL. If you're just joining us, out 11 games. There's a $5 million fine. The NFLPA could appeal. I don't see any reason why. Why would you do so? You're not going to win that appeal. So if you're the NFLPA at this point, for the lack of a better term, let sleeping dogs lie. You're not getting anything better than that. And so, look, Watson and the NFL, they've come to a settlement agreement here that'll be signed later today by all accounts. Why not just say, okay, look, let's move on. Let's all parties move on. And now, listen, this is not over for Watson. He still has a civil suit that is facing him. He has settled 23 of the 24. He does not have any criminal charges against him. He never has. He did have 10 criminal complaints against him. They were dismissed earlier this offseason by 2 Texas grand juries. And so right now, he is free and clear from a legal standpoint, save for one civil case, which of course does not carry criminal penalty, but financial penalty perhaps. All right, a few more points on this here while everybody's on. Again, appreciate all of you jumping in. Look, for the Browns, you knew he was going to get suspended, right? The question was just how many games was Watson going to get? You knew he was going to get suspended. You knew it was going to be more than a few games. When Sue Robinson said 6, I'm sure the Browns figured, oh, that's incredible, right? But realistically, I think also knew deep down that was not going to stick. The NFL was not going to allow for that kind of look. All right, 11 games is still light for a lot of people, myself included. I thought he'd get the season. Quite honestly, I think he should have gotten the season. Okay, but 11 games is going to satisfy enough people that the NFL is not going to have a huge PR disaster on its hands, as it would have if he were only suspended for 6 games. If you're Cleveland, now you at least have certainty, right? Like there's no reason to wonder anymore. Now the question just again becomes who is going to be, is it going to be Brissett or somebody on the outside? It's not going to be Deshaun Watson lining up week 1, okay? When you go to Carolina against a very, very motivated Baker Mayfield. My 2 cents on this, and I'm not going to editorialize a whole heck of a lot considering the nature of Deshaun Watson's alleged improprieties here, and I won't go into that. That's all been well documented by myself and many others. The Browns knew what they were getting into when they acquired him. Okay? They gave up 3 first-round picks and paid a fully guaranteed $230 million contract, a record-setting contract, to a player that they knew was facing 24 civil suits, that they knew was going to get paid a record-setting amount of money, okay? That they knew was likely going to be suspended for a long time, if not the entire time of this season. The Browns, by all reports, did very little actual due diligence, despite saying that they did due diligence. They did not go out and talk to a bunch of the women who filed civil suits. They did not talk to Tony Busby, who represents all of those plaintiffs and did represent all of those plaintiffs who now have settled in most cases. The Browns did all this knowing this was coming. This was a long game move for the Cleveland Browns, okay? And now they will pay for it this year. They knew that. They accepted that when they made the trade. This did not all come about after they acquired Deshaun Watson. Far from it. They knew they were going to be without Watson for a lengthy amount of time. They were fine with that. Now they have to lay in that bed. Now they have to be without him for 11 games and trot out, if it remains the current roster, a team that, frankly, I don't think can compete at any reasonable level in the AFC. Okay? Good roster, bad quarterback. And in that conference, good luck to you. Maybe in the NFC they could have eked out 9 wins. No chance. No chance in the AFC should they trot out Jacoby Brissett until we get to December. I, as I'm sure most people feel, have no sympathy for the Browns in this regard. They get none. They're lucky they're getting Watson even for 6 games, in my mind's eye. And I think, again, the playoffs, probably a pipe dream this year for Cleveland. Okay? If they go out and get Garoppolo, that changes in my mind. Then maybe you sneak in as a wild card. I do not think they have any chance of winning this division. Baltimore is way too strong. Cincinnati is too strong. And let me tell you something. The Steelers, they will be a pain in the rear end. They will find a way to be difficult to deal with. They always are. They always will be as long as they're coached by Mike Tomlin and they have a defense like they have. My parting shot here is I also think the NFL, I understand they're probably bringing Watson back after 11 games missed because that way he can accrue a season. Like, I get all that. In my opinion, while it is certainly theater and drama, and the NFL is a business and it's a TV show, and I get all that, it's somewhat of a rough look coming back and playing Houston. Now, like, don't get me wrong. From a ratings perspective, the NFL sees dollar signs out the window. I mean, they know that is going to be a show and a half. And with the Texans, you're probably not going to have many shows this year. So, like, I understand that. I also think it feels a little bit gross, right? Like, and I honestly think that part of this was happenstance, and the NFL they want to come to an agreement, and part of that was him accruing a season, and he had to come back after 11 games to do it, and it's just the way everything fell. Like, I don't believe in many coincidences in the NFL. I do think that to some extent that was one of them, but it does feel a little unsettling, right? Like, he's going to come back in Houston to play his first game. That just feels uncomfortable, right? I mean, after everything that was alleged to have happened in Houston, that's where his first game is going to be. Like, if they were playing the Texans in Cleveland, I'd say, all right, you know what? Whatever. It's his former team, but it's in Houston. It's at Energy Stadium. Feels off. Doesn't feel right. And I think in the end, though, when you look at this situation in totality, you look at a situation where Watson is coming back after only missing 2/3 of the year, which for me is still a light penalty. $5 million in fines, it's not much when you're making $230 million. It is more than he was going to be under Sue Robinson's suggestion, let's say. Okay, he wasn't going to get a fine under Robinson's 6-game suspension. There was no fine attached. And to answer the question in the chat, I did not address it, but no, Watson will. I believe he's eligible to play in the preseason. I'd be shocked though if he does. I'd be why? I mean, if you're the Browns, why? You need every rep in the world to get ready without Watson, right? So I would think that you're not going to see him in the preseason. Okay, you'll still see him in practice and all that. And maybe I'm crazy and Stefanski wants to give Watson reps. I don't think that's going to be the case, but he is eligible to play in those games. He could play in them. Look, the biggest story in the NFL has been this Watson saga, this looming specter over the league for a very long time. It concludes today. 11 games, $5 million. And now we wait and see if Jimmy Garoppolo is sent to Cleveland for a Browns team that can absolutely afford him, has a need for an upgraded quarterback, and then Garoppolo goes off into the sunset and off into free agency after this season. And the Browns then have Deshaun Watson moving forward. We'll see what they do. That is the intrigue moving forward. But for now, the NFL suspending Deshaun Watson, 11 games, finding him $5 million. He is eligible to return week 13 in Houston at Energy Stadium against the Houston Texans. The NFL never stops. The NFL never stops. And this is one of the bigger stories I can remember in some time. And so here we have it. Okay. Finally, a ruling. And now we can, from a football standpoint and only from a football standpoint, we can move on. We can move forward. By the way, Deshaun Watson just did give it in a press conference, give a little bit of a statement, if you will, maintains his innocence per Aaron Wilson of Pro Football Network. Tweets out, quote, from Watson, quote, "I've always been able to stand on my innocence. Always said I never assaulted or disrespected anyone. At the same point, I have to continue to push forward with my life and career," end quote. He was then asked why he's apologizing. And Mike Garofalo of NFL Network, per his tweet, says Deshaun Watson why he's apologizing then. Quote, "For everybody that was affected by this situation, there were a lot of people that were triggered," end quote. Um, Look, I was going to sign off, but I'll just add this. Like, I I can't take the nonsense with these apologies from Deshaun Watson and these half comments, and then he kind of speaks out of both sides of his mouth. Look, man, either apologize or don't. Okay, you already look like a clown for not apologizing in the first place. Okay, when you've got 24 civil suits against you when he first got to Cleveland, did his introductory press conference. Then you apologize to Aditi Kinkawala right before you play the Jacksonville Jaguars in your first preseason game. And now you're saying, "Why? No, I don't have anything to apologize for." But for people who are triggered, just honestly at this point, like, I get going up and speaking to the media right now. It's pretty much a no-win situation for you if you're Deshaun Watson. I understand that. Okay, that is frankly the situation that you have allegedly put yourself into. But at this juncture, just go up there and say, "Look, I am very sorry about the entire situation. I'm not saying that I'm actually, better yet, just say, look, I'm very sorry about the situation. It's incredibly unfortunate. I need to grow as a person. I need to grow as an individual. I'm here to play football for the Cleveland Browns, and that's what I intend to do. I intend to be a positive force in the community. And I hope that in time I can prove myself to be the person that I envision myself being." That's it. That's it. Like, how he can't do that, and he just keeps going back and forth. And by the way, okay, the Browns have been a crap show with this the entire way through. The entire way through. The Haslams aren't there at the introductory presser. They do a Zoom afterwards, the most gutless thing you could ever see. Okay, they're never anywhere to be found, hiding in the shadows. Then Watson plays his first game. He's given the opportunity to speak with Aditi Kinkawala in a very controlled setting, And then after the game, no, nobody's going to be able to talk with Deshaun Watson. I mean, what is that? You acquired him. You paid him $230 million. You made this big pomp and circumstance of it. Now nobody can talk to him. But you say in the next breath, "Well, we did our due diligence." Well, then why can't anybody talk to him? Is it because he can't get up there and handle a press conference like an adult? Because right now, that's what you're looking at. This whole thing, from soup to nuts, has been ugly, gross, an embarrassment, horribly mishandled by the Cleveland Browns. And frankly, based on the Browns' history under Jimmy and Dee Haslam, I'm not looking for them to handle it a whole lot better moving forward. Are you? Why would they? Why start now? The Browns have never been able to handle anything, including winning football games. Everything has always been uncomfortable with the Cleveland Browns, usually in a football sense, right? Bad draft picks, bad free agency decisions, bad coaching hires. For once, they have a good roster. They have what I believe is a very good head coach in Kevin Stefanski. I like Andrew Berry as the general manager. I have some questions about some of his moves, but overall, I like his moves. And then you enter into Deshaun Watson, and it's the Browns again. They have no idea how to handle any of this. And you have Watson giving these pressers, which are incredibly bizarre. Okay. Right now, Browns owner Dee Haslam, who finally, the Haslams are speaking today, about time, okay, who per Albert Breer says, and again, this is Dee Haslam, not Jimmy, this is Dee Haslam, saying, quote, "We have tremendous empathy for the women involved." By the way, keep in mind, they've never talked to any of these women. "And we have an opportunity now to make a difference in this community, we're going to invest $1 million to go towards educating youth for awareness of sexual misconduct. Hey, look, good on you for putting in $1 million in that endeavor. Okay, I will applaud that. You can't sit there and say you have empathy for these women. You never talked to them. By all accounts, you never talked to any of these women before you acquired Deshaun Watson. And you know why? Because you don't care. You don't care. You've never cared. You just want to get better at quarterback, which, look, I would almost have more respect for the Browns if the Browns just came up and said, hey, look, we're a football team. This was a football decision. We improved at the quarterback position. We got a top 10 talent at the most important in football. He's 26 years old, and we believe that moving forward, we can help him to be a better person. Now, there's a lot wrong with that, but at least it would be honest. The Browns continue to give off this nonsense of we really care. And you don't care. You've never cared. You've never cared. Okay? And you're an NFL team. I don't expect you to care, frankly. Maybe I'm jaded enough. I don't expect it. I do not care. Also, here is per Caleb Burton of NFL Network, who does a great job. Jimmy, his comments on Deshaun Watson. Quote, it's important to note, Deshaun is 26 years old and is a high-level NFL quarterback, and we plan on having him as a quarterback for a long time. Least dude's honest. Least dude's honest. That's about as tone deaf as it gets. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of problems with the statement like that, tone deaf being among it. Least it was straight up. At least Jimmy Haslam came out and just said the truth. They don't give a rat's ass. All they wanted to do was get a better quarterback. And they got one. They're going to have to wait 11 games. They got one. And you know what the Browns are banking on? They're sitting there banking on the fact that nobody's going to care in Cleveland. He's going to come back, and he's going to play, and he's going to throw for 4 touchdowns in Houston, and they're going to win the game, and nobody is going to care. No one's going to be bothered by this because they're going to win a bunch of games. And for the people who do care, and there certainly will be people who care outside the league, hell, many inside the league, I'm sure. Okay? Even fans of the Browns. There will be fans who have a very, very hard time ever rooting for Deshaun Watson. But you know what? The Browns fans, and most of them, most Browns fans, and by the way, it should be true of any fan base. I'm not singling out the Browns fans. It happens to be the team. You know what? They cheer for the guy. They would, because it's their team, and they want to win. And no matter what he allegedly did off the field, most fans are going to move on. They're going to buy his jersey the first time he makes a Pro Bowl. And they're going to think about it for a second. They might feel a little weird, or maybe they won't. And then they'll buy the jerseys. Okay? That's what the Browns are banking on. Jimmy Haslam basically told you as much. And you know what? He's right in the sense that people will, NFL fans, Browns fans, okay, they will root for the guy. And this will become a big part of his story, but something that the Browns feel like, well, okay, we'll live with it. That may be disgusting, but that's 100% how the Cleveland Browns are going to sit there and feel about this. By the way, Adam Schefter, obviously of ESPN, says last Friday, Deshaun Watson made comments that the NFL thought were an important first step. Of course, he's talking about when Watson spoke with Aditi Kinkawala. But the league still expects him to be fully compliant with treatment and accept accountability and behavior. Well, I got to tell you, not a great first step doing that in this presser right now. Not ideal. So maybe the NFL miscalculating a little bit. Who would have thought? All right. Just going through as I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed as I'm talking to everybody, of course. Just trying to catch up and make sure I'm not missing anything. But I got to tell you, this is so embarrassing, right? Like I said at the top here, for anybody who missed it, I think he should have been suspended for a whole season. The 11 games is going to get a lot of people off the NFL's back compared to if he had been suspended for 6 games. 11 games still, to me, is not enough. The $5 million fine, I thought it could have been more, but at least there is a significant fine. There wasn't under Sue Robinson's decision earlier on. But if you're a person with any kind of morals, like 11 games is what Watson got. The man was at one point this summer facing 2 dozen civil suits. He was facing 10 criminal complaints, which were dismissed. Okay. And he has shown zero remorse. Sue Robinson also, by the way, in her findings wrote that he had shown no remorse. he showed an ounce of remorse to Aditi Kinkawala. And geez, I wonder why. Because he knew that the NFL was about to suspend him, and that was the only PR move there was. And now that he's been suspended, he's back to having essentially no remorse. Nice job. Awful. Absolutely awful. Cabot, Mary Kay Cabot of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who's covered the Browns for a very, very long time. Browns' Jimmy Haslam said he, quote, absolutely he would make the trade for Deshaun Watson all over again, knowing what he knows now. Well, at least, again, Jimmy Haslam, not somebody that I would be very proud of knowing based off his comment, but again, honest, very honest. Tom Pelissero reporting also on that conversation of NFL Network. Haslam says he believes in chances. Quote, is he never supposed to play again? Is he never supposed to be part of society? End quote. Pelissero goes on to tweet that Haslam mentioned Kareem Hunt's second chances. That has worked out well. Okay, then. Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of people, especially plenty of women, arguing, yeah, Watson probably doesn't have a right to ever play again. Now, I don't think anybody expects him to get a lifetime ban. Okay, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, yeah, there are plenty of people who I'm sure feel disgusted with this whole thing. I'm sure there are plenty of people who feel like, yeah, Deshaun Watson really has shown no contrition, and so why does he deserve any sympathy? And if you're, look, I am obviously not a female, but I have to imagine if I was a female fan, I would be straight up disgusted with the way the NFL views women through their personal conduct policy, the way they show that their feelings toward women. They can say they love women and they value women all they want. Their actions don't always show it, and in my opinion, 11 games does not show that. All right. Lastly, here, Michael David Smith, who works over at Pro Football Talk, he tweets out, Jimmy Haslam and Deshaun Watson. We're around him every day, and he said he's remorseful. Well, he's up there saying he did nothing wrong. So, okay, not looking real remorseful. Again, all right, and I'm not going to go through every single one of these things. It's indefensible. Okay, this whole is indefensible. Watson was contrite for 5 minutes when it helped him. Okay, he was contrite for 5 minutes on Friday before they played Jacksonville to Aditi Kinkawala because it helped him. And the second it no longer mattered to be contrite, you're contrite. And I'm glad to see the Haslam speaking and actually putting themselves in front of the press, which is something they could do during his introductory press conference this spring. And Jimmy Haslam, about as honest as it gets, which I actually, bizarre way, I appreciate the honesty. I think it's unbelievably tone deaf, but it is what it is. The Browns are just, and Watson can sit there all day long and say, yeah, I apologize to people I've affected. I mean, when you sit up there and say, I haven't done anything wrong, then you're not apologizing. You're not taking any kind of accountability. And for the Browns, and for me, it's just part of this, to say, we really sympathize and empathize with these women. No, you don't. You didn't even bother to talk to one of these women before you acquired Deshaun Watson because you don't give a shit. And to pretend you do is a joke. Deshaun Watson, suspended 11 games, fined $5 million by the NFL. He's eligible to come back week 13 when the Browns visit the Texans down in Houston. Thank you for joining me on this breaking news version of Stacking the Box. Deshaun Watson, suspended. We'll be back again here on Tuesday, unless, of course, there's more news. We're going to be doing this throughout the year, okay? We're going to be breaking in with breaking news. I'm going to be doing a lot of these live streams. I'm going to be doing a lot of them almost daily during the season. So if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. There'll be plenty of content coming out of Stacking the Box. For now, I am Matt Verderame. Thank you for me. And we'll talk to you again next week.